Everyone, I'm joined by Kim Powell. I met her actually. She was an aide working in a nursing home with my mother. My mother, as all of you know, if you're watching on my social media, and if you haven't already, my mom passed away back in May. So that's how I met you. And you told me the story as my mom was dying. You told me the story about your own loss in your own life. And you still do not have a complete closure with your loss, correct?
Correct. No, it's been a journey.
So, I mean, I was fortunate enough to have my mom who's, died at an old age, but you lost someone, your 17-year-old son. That hit me when you told me that. You were holding my hand as my mom was dying, and then you told me about your son, and it made me even just so sad because a parent should never have to bury their child. But your 17-year-old son, Alante, he was murdered, correct?
Yes, he was. He was murdered on the west side of Detroit.
Oh
And he
my.
actually had just turned 18. His birthday was July the 3rd.
Oh,
And
I'm sorry.
He was murdered August the 24th of 2011.
Okay. Sorry. Sorry
That's
about that.
okay. That's
Um,
okay.
and I want to help you. Like you were there, when my mom was dying, you were there to help us get through that. And you need the closure. You need to know what happened. And someone needs to be held accountable
Yeah.
because they took away your child.
Yes.
So I know it's tough to do, but you told me at the time, but run down what happened. This was just a normal day, right?
Right. It was a normal day. And actually, Alante, he was actually over his pastor's house at the time. He was involved in church. He was on the Osborne football team. And he would commute on the bus going from east to west from my house to his pastor house. And this particular day was a normal day. I had talked to him that evening. And well, the day before I talked to him, but that night, the next night, I didn't even get the call until the next day after. And it was a sad thing because I was actually in a store with my sister, and my nephew called me and he said, "Auntie, what is this on Facebook saying Rip Alante?" And I said, "Huh?" I was kind of frazzled, like, "What do you mean?" And he started saying that he seen it on social media. So I hadn't got the information. The information was already on social media.
So you learned basically from social media that your son had been murdered.
Yes, my nephew informed me. He called me that morning, and that's when I got the news. So he had got murdered the night before, but I didn't get the information to the next day. And, all I could do, I was in shock. I was stunned. I ran out the store trying to go see what's going on. I actually went to the police department, and that's when I learned that he was murdered on the west side of Detroit. Someone had approached him that night. So what happened is Alante, he had some friends going off to school, and he was trying to go see a friend to go off to college. And I believe that night he, they called him late and he tried to go. And when he left out the door, he just didn't return.
Was he in the wrong place at the wrong, we don't know, I guess, wrong place, wrong
We
time?
don't, I believe he didn't understand where he was at because he was on the west side of Pembroke and Pinehurst.
Okay.
And even talking to the detectives, they informed me that that was an area that they were concerned about. And I don't think he really realized where he was at. And when I think about that, I think about even the Psalms 23 would say, "Yea, though I walk through the shadow of death, I fear no evil." Because my son was a type of person, he was a people's person. He visited everybody. He loved to be with family. And as I said, he was coming from his pastor's house. And even that, talking to the pastor and the first lady, the church he go to, because he spent the night over there often. And they stayed on Mendota and 8 Mile. He crossed over to Pembroke and Pinehurst, and they tried to say, well, when he crossed over 8 Mile, he was in an area. It could have been gang related, but he's not in the gang, and they may believe that it was mistaken identity. But they believe, the detective said that, they believe someone approached him in a park because he walked through a park to try to get to his destination. And they believe someone approached him in a park and when he was walking through the park, whoever it was, he must have seen them. They said my son ran a long way after they shot him in the back. Um, he ran a long way. He collapsed in front of someone's house. They called the police and 911, but he actually passed away at the hospital.
So that happened what day? The evening of
August 24th.
what year
It was
again?
like 10 o'clock, 2011.
Okay, August
It's
24th,
like
2000.
yes, 10 o'clock p.m. at night.
Okay. Obviously, so not, I mean, he wasn't in a gang. He was a young
Right.
man. He sounded like he was on the right path. He was with God. He was in football. It sounds like he was disciplined,
Yes.
and he wasn't in any bad way. He was going in a good direction.
Yes. And I know a lot of parents will say, my son was a good kid. He was like any typical kid. He was in high school. He had the trouble, learning and all of that in high school. He was just like a typical kid, but he loved sports. Like he loved the football team. And I feel like, I was in a place where I was just praying that somebody would put him on the right path. And his coach, he had a football coach, Coach Coker, who helped, he came in contact with him and he kept him on the straight and narrow once he got in football.
Nice.
And he loved to play football for Osborne High School. He had a few colleges looking at him,
Wow.
And I thank God that he was a kid that was determined. He was determined to get out of here. And that's what I saw in him. He wanted to make it out.
And he was on his way. He was on his way,
Yeah.
it sounded like.
Yes, he had some college football teams. He had some people looking at him, scholarships, and that's the hard part. He didn't get to graduate from high school.
Oh. So obviously, someone out there knows what happened, and the way people talk, other people probably know who did it, because when as they say, the street talks.
Yes.
And the people know, and I've been covering crime for 24 years, and there's a big thing that no one wants to snitch out another person.
Right.
But at some point, you would hope, maybe if a girl was dating a guy and this girl if someone knows about it, I mean, they should come forward, because it could be their kid one day, right? I mean,
right. So what I did was I continued to do peace walks in the area, even though I had to stop, because I never knew that who I was in company with, because he got killed over there. Yeah. So for years I did peace walks, and even the detectives talked to a couple of witnesses. And it was one lady who said that she seen my son, but she couldn't see his face. She seen him running. All she seen was him running, and she seen the person in a white t-shirt. But my son still had on like his Osborne gear, his football gear. So yes, and whoever approached him was in a white t-shirt. So somebody saw something, because they said he was sitting on a rail at a park. Like he was sitting on a rail, like he was waiting for somebody. Okay, he may look suspicious to some people, but he was actually waiting for the person to get home so he can go and see them before they leave. Okay. And it was late, of course it was. I wouldn't advise nobody to go out in the world we live in this late. But I do believe God God knew that he would leave. And I hold on to that God knew what was going to happen before I did. And I believe someone knows something, but I definitely hold on to the fact that whoever knows, that their conscience will condemn them. But if not, if they don't meet a judge on this side, they will meet a judge on the other side.
Absolutely.
So that's just my confidence to know that, I'm at peace with not knowing, but I would definitely want to know.
There's an ultimate judge.
Yes, it is. It is. And I've been searching, in the beginning, I wanted to know so bad, like who could do this to a person, because it's not our right to take someone's life. The Bible says thou shalt not kill, and it's nobody's right to kill, take another person's life. And I just hold on to the fact that if they don't meet the judge on this side, they will meet them on the other side.
It's a good way to look at it, because that's the ultimate judge.
Yes.
I mean, and that person can't escape what they know that they did. So
Right.
they're gonna have to live with it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
wow. How are you? How do you? I have I have two kids and 5 and 9. I can't imagine. How do you stay strong? It has to be is your belief in your God.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you do it?
It's the grace of God. I wasn't always here. The beginning was rough. I had to continue to hold on to my faith
Yeah.
because we have those questions. When you go through something so tragic, it's hard not to question why. But I do hold on to my faith, and I believe God's grace has brought me to where I am. It's been 12 years. 12 years since it'll be, yeah, it's been 12 years since he's been gone. And of course, I miss him dearly. I really do. And, it's what keeps me strong is the grace of God. And I still sometimes it's one day at a time, and it's the peace of God that I have that passes all understanding. It's his peace that he gives me each day. Because even when I have those rough days, it's not 12 years and I still go through rough days where I would just be crying or tears will fall when I'm got my, laying my head on my pillow and nobody knows. But I know God knows, and I believe he keeps me strong. It was a rough road, and I'll tell anybody that been through what I've been through, it takes the grace of God to go through it.
I'm assuming I can I'm near Flint, Michigan, and it's been years later. So I got thousands of people all over the country. So people could have moved out of Detroit since then. So it's important for everyone to share this video out.
Yes, please.
Um, and I'm assuming I can do I put if someone does know something, Detroit police or Crime Stoppers, or what's the best?
Yeah, so I worked with Crime Stoppers for years on this case.
Okay.
I continue to volunteer with them. I continue. So I haven't stopped that piece, because it's been many cases piled on since my son.
Oh yeah.
It's been many people that's lost children. And in the beginning, I would think that I was alone and I was by myself in this, but it's so many women that have lost children. And it's a hard thing. And if somebody knows something, they can contact Crime Stopper. They do anonymous tips all the
That's the
time. You
that's
don't
the
have to
big thing.
share your name. You don't have to share who you are. It's just if you have information, you can share that information. And a lot of people believe, the street code, stitches, snitches get stitches. That's they saying. But it's a time we living in. People don't realize until it touched their own families that you will want someone to say something. And
And like
that's
I
all I ask. If you know anything, contact Crime Stoppers, give them a tip. They'll handle that, and because it's not I don't believe it's my responsibility to be the voice for my child because he's not here to to I'm his voice.
yeah.
And if somebody have anything information, they can contact Crime Stoppers, Detroit police, and say something. Because if it was your own, you would want somebody to say something.
When they call or give a message to them, they can give his name and right and say,
Yes, they
okay,
can give his name if they know his name, and his name is Alante Powell. And
okay.
I try to keep that name before people's mind because I don't want people to forget. It's a reminder that people are still hurting. Mothers are hurting to bury their own children. And I don't want nobody to feel, I wouldn't want another mother to feel the way I felt, and I still feel sometimes. But I say again, it's the grace of God that I am in my right mind. And I live each day to thank him for giving me a right mind to get up in the morning and not wallow in my pity or feel sorry for myself and it's his grace. I believe that. But there's women out here that haven't got there, and if you haven't got there, just trust God. He can bring you through it. You can make it through it.
When I'm up in Flint and I don't have a lot, I have some connections in Detroit, not a lot, but I'm going to post this in a lot of Detroit groups. But God works in weird ways, because who would have thought that I'd be, connected with you,
Yeah.
and that this would happen. So maybe things happen for a weird reason. We don't know.
I believe God have a purpose for everything. Me meeting you, I don't believe it was a coincidence. I
Wow.
don't believe in coincidence. I believe God has a plan. And if he has to use you to do that, he will. And I thank God for you. I really do. I'm honored and I'm blessed to have met you. I really am.
Well,
I
even
really
if
do.
we want to find him, but you being so strong, and there's going to be a lot of people watching this, I think you are helping other women or even men who've lost children. You're helping people just the way you are.
But thank God, because
Yeah,
I want to be an example. I really want people to see that God is the God of all comfort. Everybody go through loss.